You know, it's a very whimsical idea. A lot of beekeepers say, oh, my bees know me, my bees won't sting me, and I think that's nice, but it's not accurate because the bees live for 6 weeks at best, so they're not going to know the beekeeper.
So these bees from Harlem are fulfilling their dream of leaving their gentrifying area and coming to the suburbs. It's nice.
My father's been a beekeeper for a long time, since I was a kid. He was also a firefighter. That was his real job. His vocation was firefighting. He's still a beekeeper. His mother's a beekeeper. Her father was a beekeeper. So we've had beekeepers in the family since the 1800s. It's kind of like growing up in a house where people speak 2 languages and you just grow up speaking that language, and we always spoke beekeeping, as it were. So I don't remember being introduced to it. I just remember it being there. But I do remember one time when I was 9 years old, maybe, going out in the backyard to help my father, or I thought I was helping him. And I was barefoot, and I stepped on a bee and was stung. So I learned very quickly to wear shoes when I went to the bee yard. My father had probably told me to do so, and I just hadn't listened. But I never forgot.
Here. Let's move the mountain to Muhammad. 2, 3. Okay, hold on. Fine.
Hive straps tomorrow?
Tomorrow. I mean, give him a chance. This way will give him a chance to calm down a little bit.
I always liked spending time with my father, and beekeeping was a great conduit for that, an excuse, a vehicle to be with him. So I learned to keep bees the way he did. Move slowly, methodically, and just enjoy the moment and be present in that moment, because if you're in a rush, you're going to make a mistake, and if you make a mistake, you're going to get stung. I became a full-time beekeeper about 5 years ago, I'd say in about 2010. I was teaching full-time for the state of Connecticut. I had just finished my Fulbright in Eastern Europe, and I returned to the States, and I got a job teaching full-time. I enjoyed it, but I was enjoying it less and less as the years went by. I missed beekeeping more and more. I wanted to spend more time with my father, and I really couldn't do it unless I did more beekeeping because he was always keeping bees. So just beekeeping, teaching kind of inverted, and soon it was just beekeeping.
Whew. These bees are irritated. Well, they were just, think of what they went through today. They were screened in, taped up, carried down 6 flights of stairs and driven around Manhattan, driven through New York City, and Connecticut. And here you can see them vying to get out. So, very irritated. Yeah, I've learned this from my father, and I've worked with him for over 30 years. So you see him, he's doing everything I'm doing. He's in his 70s. I don't think I'll be that strong at that age. Okay, 2, 3. Wow, yeah, it's the heaviest one. It's not ideal to move them at any time, but not at this time of the year. It's unfortunate when we have a location where we have a nice apiary and the owners, after literally begging for us to put bees on their building, demand us to move them within a couple of days. It's hard to organize that. We burn a whole day. So, but I guess that's the way it goes sometimes. It's a little frustrating, but it's okay. There's an empty building lot, you know, a lot that either once had a building or has never been developed, I don't know, but there's a fence around it, and I have a key on my key ring of over 200 keys that open up over 15 buildings, 20, I don't even know. Let's find out. Maybe I'll be just as lucky with the honey. People always ask me how many buildings I have bees on or how many properties. One, I don't see why they need to know, but two, I don't know. Many is the answer. Many. It's hard to keep bees alive in the winter, especially in places like New York where it's cold. We had 6 months of freezing cold nighttime temperatures in a row this past winter, so it can be difficult. It isn't the cold so much that kills the bees, it's the wet cold. But also, if the bees have a disease going into the winter, we don't do inspections over the winter months, so it goes unabated. If the bees don't have enough food, they're not going to make it. If they can't get to the food, they're not going to make it. It's easier to kill bees than to keep them alive.
You smoke the bees in order to calm them down a little bit so that you can inspect them better, and bees communicate via pheromones. So if we smoke them, it's harder for them to communicate with each other. For example, the danger that some idiot human is ripping the roof off of their home and messing about with their combs. When it comes to harvesting, you've got to have the right weather, not too cold, not too hot, not too wet, not too dry. You've got to have a good, strong queen who laid a lot of eggs early in the spring, or the late winter, early spring, so that there are enough foragers to go out and grab that nectar when it comes. If it rains too hard, then you're going to lose that nectar. If there's not enough rain, there won't be nectar. So there are a lot of factors, but it really kind of comes down to the weather.
I don't take a lot of fall honey anymore because I'm tired of losses, feeling like a bad beekeeper when my bees don't make it through the winter. And sometimes the bees don't make it and their hive is full of honey, so there's not one way to do it. That's one of the things I think that keeps beekeeping interesting, is that there's not one correct way, and things are always changing and evolving, and there's new ideas, old ideas brought back.
We take the surplus when it's there. There's an expression, harvest early, harvest often. So as soon as the bees make that surplus, you take it out of the hive, and put it back empty so they can refill it. So you harvest as often as you can, once, twice, 3 times a year. It just depends on the hive and
so,
a lot of factors.
Here's brood. Under here is brood, the babies. These are males here. The with like bullet tips coming out more. Those are males. All these are here are females. Plenty up around the edges. There's some pollen in there. It's a little hard to see because they're covering it up pretty well. And other than I just tore apart their house there. See all the white jelly stuff in there? Those are larvae.
If there were one way to keep bees that always worked, we would all know it by now and we'd all be great beekeepers, but that's not the case. There are a lot of variables and it's a fun challenge to try to stay on top of that.
I've kept bees for quite a long time, and I have more to learn than I already know. There's no question about it. I'm not being humble, it's just the way it is. So I can do a lot with bees. I understand them very well, and at the same time, there's so much I don't know. Maybe they're like any woman. You think you've got a handle on things. You think you got it figured out. You know what makes them tick, and then you find out no, you were wrong about everything you thought you knew.